Let me ask you something. How many of the things you believe about yourself have you ever truly stopped and questioned? Because here's the truth. The most dangerous word in the world isn't hate, it isn't fear, it isn't even failure. The most dangerous word is belief. Belief is a spell, and the frightening part is that most people are under it without even realizing it. Belief is what tells you who you are, what you deserve, what's possible for you, and what's not. But the catch is this: you didn't sit down one day and carefully choose every belief you have. You inherited them. You absorbed them from your parents, your teachers, your culture, your friends, and the experiences that shaped you when you were too young to even know you had a choice. And now those beliefs are running your life, dictating your actions and shaping your future, without you even asking one simple question: why? Think about it. At some point, maybe you decided, or more likely, someone decided for you, that you're not good enough at something. Maybe it was math, maybe it was sports, maybe it was love, maybe someone told you once that you're too quiet, too shy, too loud, too emotional, too much or not enough, and what did you do? You believed them. Not because they were right, but because belief is sticky. When a message is repeated to you often enough, when you hear it from someone you trust, or when it gets reinforced by a single painful moment, it embeds itself deep into your mind. And from then on, you don't question it. You don't ask, why do I believe this? Where did it come from? What if it isn't true? You just carry it as though it's a fact. That's the spell of belief. It's quiet, it's invisible, and it's powerful. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It shapes your decisions in subtle ways. You don't apply for the job you want because you believe you wouldn't get it anyway. You don't open your heart to someone new because you believe you'll just be hurt. You don't take the risk, the chance, the leap because you believe it isn't for you. And here's the tragic part: none of this is because you can't. It's only because you believe you can't. Do you see how dangerous that is? Belief is not reality. Belief is not fact. Belief is just a thought you've accepted without proof. It's the strongest cage in the world, and most people don't even see the bars. So the worst spell isn't something someone casts on you with magic. It's not a curse spoken in the night. The worst spell is the one word, belief. Because once you accept a belief without questioning it, you give it the power to shape your entire life. And until you start asking why do I think this? Why do I believe this? Why does this feel true? You'll stay trapped inside an illusion. Belief can lift you, yes, but it can also bury you. And when you don't know why you believe what you do, you're not living freely. You're living under a spell. Think about how many times in your life you've said something like, I could never do that, or that's just not me, or people like me don't get chances like that. Stop for a moment and realize what's really happening in those sentences. You're not describing reality, you're describing a belief. And what's even scarier is that most of the time, that belief was never yours to begin with. It was handed to you, passed down, or carelessly dropped on you by someone else, and you picked it up without even noticing. That's how powerful beliefs are. They don't need to prove themselves to you. They just need to sound familiar enough that you stop asking questions. And the second you stop asking why, you're under the spell. Maybe when you were younger, someone said, you're not smart enough to do that. Or maybe they told you, be realistic, dreams like that aren't for people like us. And you heard it at just the right moment when you were vulnerable, or when you wanted approval, and it stuck. From that day forward, that belief began writing the script of your life. Every time an opportunity came close, you felt the old voice rise, not for me, I could never. And because you believed it, you didn't even test it. You didn't step forward to see if reality might be different. You didn't argue with it. You didn't fight it. You just obeyed it. That's the cruel genius of belief. It doesn't have to be true to control you. It only has to go unquestioned. And that's why so many people end up living lives that feel smaller than they imagined. They don't lack talent or desire or even opportunity. What they lack is awareness. They never stopped to trace the belief back to its origin. They never asked, why do I believe this? Where did this even come from? Who told me this, and what right did they have to decide my limits? Most of the time, if you trace a limiting belief far enough back, you'll find it came from someone else's fear, someone else's insecurity, or someone else's failure. It wasn't about you at all, but because you never questioned it, it became your story. And here's what makes that spell so hard to see. Beliefs don't feel like beliefs. They feel like facts. When you've carried them long enough, they blend into the background of your identity. They become the lens you see the world through. So when you say, "I'm not the kind of person who can do that," you don't feel like you're expressing a belief. You feel like you're stating a truth. But it isn't truth. It's just repetition. A belief spoken enough times, accepted enough times, becomes so heavy that it feels immovable. Until you finally stop and say, "Wait a second, why do I believe this at all?" That single question is what starts to crack the spell, and the moment you ask it, the grip of that old belief loosens. Because the truth is, most of what you think limits you has nothing to do with reality. It's just a belief that went unchallenged, and the second you dare to challenge it, you begin to see how fragile it really was all along. The scariest thing about belief is that it doesn't need evidence to survive. It doesn't need proof. It doesn't need logic. It just needs repetition. You don't need proof to believe you're not lovable. You don't need proof to believe you're not smart enough. And you don't need proof to believe success is for other people. All you need is to think the same thought again and again until your brain accepts it as reality. That's how a lie becomes your truth, not because it was ever real, but because you never stopped it at the door. And once it's inside, it begins to shape everything. How you see yourself, how you show up, and the choices you make every single day. Think about how powerful that is. A single belief, false or true, and stop you from stepping into a relationship, from chasing a dream, from even daring to ask for more. You don't avoid these things because they're impossible. You avoid them because the belief tells you they are. Belief works like invisible walls. You don't even test them. You just accept they're there, so you stay inside, and maybe once or twice you press against the edge of those walls. You try something, but the moment you hit resistance, you tell yourself, "See, I knew it wasn't for me." You don't see that resistance was just a challenge, a normal part of growth. You see it as confirmation of the belief you've been carrying for years. That's how deeply the spell runs. And here's the part that should terrify you just enough to wake you up. Beliefs don't just sit quietly in your head, they actively direct your life. If you believe you're unworthy of love, you'll push away the people who try to love you. If you believe you're not capable of more, you won't even notice opportunities when they appear in front of you. If you believe failure defines you, you'll play small to avoid the risk, and all the while, you'll convince yourself that's just who you are. But it's not who you are, it's who you've believed yourself to be. There's a huge difference. The tragedy is that many people go their whole lives never realizing they've been living under this spell. They think their choices are logical, they think their limits are real, they think their patterns are fixed. They never realize they've been driven by unexamined beliefs that have nothing to do with reality. And the crazy part, the spell is so fragile. The second you begin to question it, the second you say, "Hold on, why do I think this? Who told me this? Where's the evidence?" That's the second the belief starts to weaken. It loses its grip, because a belief that has no proof cannot survive the light of awareness. But until you get to that point, the belief has all the power. It will tell you what's possible, it will shrink your world, and it will keep you inside a box so small you start to forget there's anything outside it. And if you never question it, that box becomes your whole life. That's what makes belief the most dangerous spell. It doesn't need to be true, it only needs to be repeated. And when you don't challenge it, it quietly writes the story of who you become. Imagine taking one of the strongest beliefs that limits you right now and holding it up to the light. Maybe it's about love. You believe you're too damaged, too complicated, or too late to find someone who will truly love you. Maybe it's about success. You believe you're not smart enough, not lucky enough, or not connected enough to ever reach the level you dream of. Or maybe it's about your own worth. You believe you're not valuable enough to be chosen, to be heard, or to be seen. What happens if you pause and simply ask, where did this belief come from? Did I decide it, or did someone hand it to me? Did I build it from real evidence, or did I just absorb it because I heard it enough times? Did it come from my own experience, or is it the echo of someone else's fear and insecurity? The moment you trace a belief back to its origin, most of the time you'll find it doesn't even belong to you. It belongs to a parent who was scared of taking risks. It belongs to a teacher who underestimated you. It belongs to a society that profits when you play small, when you doubt yourself, when you stay quiet. But here's the powerful truth. Once you realize the belief isn't yours, you get to decide whether to keep it. That's where the real freedom starts. Because belief only has power in the dark, when you don't notice it, when you don't question it. As soon as you shine a light on it, it starts to unravel. Think about it like this. If someone handed you a pair of glasses when you were a child and told you this is how the world looks, you'd wear them and assume it was reality. Maybe the lenses were dark, maybe they were scratched, maybe they blurred your vision, but because you didn't know any better, you'd take their word for it. Beliefs are the same. They color everything you see. And if you never take them off, never check the lens, you mistake the distortion for the truth. But when you finally stop and hold the glasses in your hands and ask, is this really how things are? Or is this just how I was taught to see them? You realize you have a choice. You can take them off, you can change the lens, you can start seeing clearly for the first time, and that's what happens when you question your beliefs. You take back your power, you stop letting invisible scripts run your life, and you start writing your own. You stop obeying voices from the past, and you start listening to your own. You stop being defined by someone else's fear, and you start choosing courage. Because the truth is, the belief itself isn't the problem. It's the fact that you accepted it without asking if it was ever true. Once you ask that question, the belief loses its magic. It stops being a spell and starts being a choice. And once it's a choice, you are free. The truth is, the worst spell is not something another person casts on you. It's not a curse whispered in the dark or a hex placed on your name. The worst spell is belief that goes unchallenged, belief you accept blindly, belief you repeat so many times that it becomes invisible, a background rhythm in your mind that dictates your life without you ever realizing it. And the most dangerous part is how normal it feels. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, I'm under a spell. You just wake up thinking, this is who I am, this is how life works, but it isn't. It's simply what you've believed long enough to stop questioning, and that's why curiosity is the antidote. Curiosity is what breaks the spell. Every time you feel small, every time you feel trapped, every time you hear that inner voice telling you, not now, not ever, you have a choice. You can accept it, or you can lean in and ask, why do I believe this? Who told me this? What evidence do I really have? When you ask those questions, you strip the belief of its authority. You stop treating it like fact and you start treating it like what it really is, a story. And stories can be rewritten. Think of all the times you've seen someone defy a belief that everyone swore was true. Someone who was told they were too old to start again, but went on to build something extraordinary. Someone who was told they weren't smart enough, but ended up leading. Someone who was told they would never be loved, but found the person who saw them fully. Those people didn't have some secret advantage. They simply refused to let a belief dictate their future. They asked, what if this isn't true for me? And in that moment, the spell broke. That's the power you have right now. You can choose to live under beliefs that shrink you, or you can question them until they dissolve. You can choose to be the person who obeys the invisible rules handed down by others, or you can be the one who dares to ask, why not me? Why not now? The only difference between a life that feels confined and a life that feels limitless is which beliefs you decide to keep. So never forget this. Belief is not reality. It's not fact. It's not destiny. It's simply a choice you've been making without realizing it. And the moment you realize that, you unlock the greatest freedom there is. The freedom to choose differently. The worst spell is belief, yes, but the greatest power you will ever have is the ability to question it, to rewrite it, and to create new ones that serve the life you actually want to live.